Last year, I made a 5-star selector guide, and this year, we've got another one in our anniversary. So, I'm gonna make this video a refresh of that previous guide and also top it up with the newer 5 stars that you can select. I'll start this video by explaining the difference between what a new player can see compared to a veteran player. And there's also no better way to do this than within my favorite emulator, that is LDPlayer. LDPlayer is a great emulator for you to choose if you want to play Arknights on your PC. Just for the fact that it's so well optimized after all this while. For those of you who may have multiple Arknights accounts or you're playing many gacha games, LDPlayer's multi-instance feature can let you run all of these accounts at once, saving the time that you need to farm your materials. So, if you'd like to try out LDPlayer, the download affiliate link is in the description of my video. So welcome back to my new account. Now if your new account looks as fresh as mine, where I created this after the 3rd anniversary began, you will still be receiving a 5-star selector ticket. But yours will look different from the other players, whereby you have a mail that says permanent event for newbie doctors. When you collect it, the operators that you can choose will look something like this. It does have a lot of 5 stars for you to choose, but the newer ticket has more 5 stars. If you have created your account before the 3rd anniversary began, you'll receive a mail that reads 3rd Annif transfer permit. And then the contents of this ticket is different from before, where as you see, there are more 5 stars that you could be selecting. The purpose of this video is to recommend the best 5 star out of this ticket. So as to accommodate more of the players, I'll be referencing to the bigger pool instead. If you're a newer player with the smaller ticket, don't worry, there's still many great 5 stars for you to choose from. But first, let me give advice to the longer time players as it's much shorter. So for those of you who have been playing for very long, you have a ticket that looks similar to mine. You might have a lot of own operators and very few unowned operators left. Or maybe it's half-half. In Arknights, potential is not as important for your operators, but rather the options to play with more operators to add to your fun and variety in Arknights. So for collection's sake, I would highly recommend those of you who played for long to focus on your unowned operators. Currently, I only have 2 left, so what I'm actually doing is that I'm holding the ticket first and waiting for one of these 5 stars to arrive. Then, I'll use the ticket to get the last unowned 5 star that I have. Some of you here might have all the 5 stars already, and instead, you want to go for potentials. For that, I will highly advise you to give potentials to the operators that you use the most, so that you can get the bigger benefit out of the DP cost down, talent improvement, and other things as well. In a way, for veteran players, you do have an easier time when selecting the 5 stars that you want, but some of you might want some critical advice as to what is the next best option that you can go for, maybe because you still have 3/4 of the 5 stars missing. So I'm going to help you with that along with the new players. So I've split the 5 stars into 4 great categories, starting from the top to the bottom. We'll begin with Newbie Power, and there are 2 marvelous 5 stars that we must mention. It is always going to be these 2 when people ask about who are the best 5 stars ever in the game. Selector and LDPlayer. Selector's reasoning is that she's already very operational at Elite 1. At Elite 2, you're simply creating a monster powerhouse. It's almost to the point that I praise Selector to be a pseudo 6 star. The reason why Selector is rated so highly is because of her especially powerful skill 2. Even though her HP falls to 1, she becomes invincible to the enemy's attacks and still grinds them down with a super high damage, making her super versatile that you might still use even later in the game. LDPlayer on the other hand, while she did fall a bit short in the past year, but then in the recent few months, where a lot of the enemies have annoying traits that can actually be silenced, LDPlayer pops off as someone that you really wish to have in all those stages. And she does have an amazing skill too, where when it's turned on, she goes from physical damage to arts damage. Offering 2 damage in 1 makes her really powerful to use in many of the maps. And the ability for her to work on multiple lanes as well, where she doesn't only need to point towards one, but maybe she can point upwards or downwards to help her allies in the battle, is super amazing. No one will argue about these 2 operators. And then we go on to the high impact. These operators are also amazing, but they fall just a little bit shorter than the operator's name in front. Blue Poison is an amazing marksman sniper for the fact that she applies a damage over time arts damage onto her enemies while also dealing her main damage as physical damage. This is super good in certain events and also great in maps like IS or even SSS. The fact that Blue Poison is someone who's really good in all the game modes of AK makes her a really nice pick of someone that you might use even as you progress in the game. Telopsis offer great SP recovery, even at Elite 1, giving 0.15 SP per second. When you Elite 2 her, it goes all the way up to 0.3 for all the allies, by the way, which is why she's so darn good to use. I still use her today. Warframe is someone who is able to give a steam pistol kind of thing. She gives a great buff to one particular ally, raising their attack super high and helping them to surpass maybe the resistance or the defense of the enemies, making her super good to use, and her talent to give 1 SP for every enemy killed in range is also pretty sweet. Now when it comes to Project Red and Kafka, you don't need to have 2. It's much more important that you have just 1 of the 2, because Red is able to give a long enough duration of a stun, and Kafka is able to apply sleep. Kafka is an amazing operator who can be used at low investment. You might be weirded out that I leave her at level 50. She's the sort of operator where you either leave at Elite 0 or you go all the way up to Elite 2. Jay is another operator who's an example of that. The reason is because if you increase her promotion level, she gets increased DP cost, which can be detrimental for someone like her who's a fast redeploy. Hence, you'll see it very common that people just leave Kafka at level 50. And the great thing is that for skill 1 where she applies sleep, no matter what skill level that you give her, she always applies 5 seconds of sleep, which is a really weird thing for Hyperglyph to do. But in any case, like I said, you just need a Project Red or Kafka and your account will be pretty solidified. And Elysium is also someone who's always praised. If you're using his skill 1, he can give high TP generation, and if you're using skill 2, the defense debuff onto 4 enemies while also slowing them down is super good to use. Imagine using Warframe, Elysium, and Blue Poison all together. Elysium has a talent where he buffs the ASPD of the snipers when his skill is used, making him just also fun to help an account. And finally, in this category, we have Shemare. Shemare is what we call a buffer-debuffer. For a talent, when the enemies are below certain HP, they will take more damage from your allies. Her skill 1 is able to amplify that, making that a buffing skill. Then for a skill 2, it lowers the attack and defense of the enemies, helping those of you who have a physical damage composition. If you notice that your snipers aren't piercing through the armor of the enemies, you can use Shemare to lower their defense so that your snipers can have a better time. The great thing about Shemare is that she's not range limited in her skill 2, where you can place her doll that debuffs the enemies anywhere on the map, making her super great to use. In the third category, I consider these operators as really good and people that I would still recommend if you have all the operators in the front. So these will include examples like Liskab, where she's able to provide SP recovery to any of the allies that's within her range when she's being attacked. The reason why Liskab is not placed as high impact is because she's a little bit tougher to utilize compared to the ones in front. If you don't have enemies where she can stall and benefit from the defense recovery, then she wouldn't be giving much SP to your allies. But if you happen to have the perfect situations where she's able to continuously churn out SP, then she can do amazing, which is also why I push her all the way to the left and become the first one to mention in this category. Platinum is a super high damage single target sniper. Once her skill pops up in her skill 2, or if you somehow want to use her skill 1, you'll enjoy that super high attack that other snipers may not actually have, marksman snipers particularly. She also has increased range on her skill 2, making it super good in certain maps of Arknights. Leonhardt is gonna be a bit of a biased pick. What I mean by that is, people don't tend to promote Leonhardt, but I am a strong promoter of Leonhardt because I think he's one of the best AoE casters that you can ask for. I don't really enjoy any of the other splash casters like Gitano, Lava the Purgatory. Sometimes I get frustrated a bit by Dusk and Mostima as well. But Leonhardt always wins it for me, for the fact that his second skill is able to lower the resistance of the enemies and help his skill to churn out even more damage while also supporting the other casters around. That's why I strongly advise people to give Leonhardt a try, because I think he's the most enjoyable splash caster to experience. Manticore is great for the fact that she has a slowing skill 1 that applies at quite a big range. Her skill 2 also has the ability to stun enemies, which allows your operators to attack with a greater amount of time. Both skills are wonderful to try, and she also have a decently high physical damage that is true AoE, meaning all the enemies in her range will get hit by it. April is considered a little bit niche, but when you can actually use the camouflage in certain maps, you'll be grateful that you have April. For the fact that April can gain camouflage on the skill 2 when you deploy her, it allows all these ranged enemies to not notice that she's there while she silently takes them out, which is why she becomes a really good 5-star to actually attempt. Silence is of course often promoted because of the fact that she has the drone that can be deployed anywhere on the map. In the early game, newer players can find this to be very useful, but in the late game, you might end up not using silence as much if you end up resorting to, say, stronger medics. Maybe you want to use Telopsis Warframe more, or even Shining and Nightingale. But still, if you cherish silence, silence can be a super strong medic that takes you throughout the game. While we have Shamir that already exists in the game, I still highly recommend people to try Premonix, because Premonix is able to debuff both the defense and the resistance of the enemies. Having both stats to come down makes all types of damage vulnerable for the enemies. The only downside is that the enemies must be within her range to get that debuff. Null is a pretty good option if you've been relying on Spot and Gumi all this while, but you still don't have Saria or Blemishine in your account to really help out with the bigger healing that you might be needing. The last category is for those of you who have all those strong 5-stars in the front, and yet you want to try something new so that you can spike up your interest within Arknights. So let's name them one by one. La Pluma could be a shocker. Some people might consider La Pluma as very good or even high impact. The reason why I didn't put La Pluma as someone who's within those categories is because number one, she is a little bit painful to use when she's at Elite 1. And for a new player, for the fact that La Pluma cannot be healed by her medics, the only person who can properly heal her being someone like Scouter, Angelina or Perfumer, La Pluma becomes a bit challenging to understand how she's actually best used. Of course, if you give La Pluma mastery straight away on either her skill 1 or skill 2, she will definitely be very strong. But coupled with her low defense and not an insanely high attack, if let's say you only have her skills at rank 7, I do find La Pluma to be a little lackluster to use. So in a way, she becomes only super good when you actually put high investment into La Pluma. Hence, that's why I consider her in the fun category. But don't worry, for those of you who's already eyeing on La Pluma, you don't care about all the opinions I said before, go ahead and pick her, you wouldn't regret it. V-Swax is a super strong flanks caster for the fact that she can become a ranged defender who can self-heal over time. She can soak up the damage that the enemies deal onto her without needing that much of a medic to heal her. And that is especially so once you elite to her. That's why she's someone who I consider to be fun. Estacia is great because her skill 2 is super fast at popping up and it increases her attack along with the defense, which can be super helpful when dealing with high attack enemies, physical damage that is, and them having low resistance. Roka has a super fun skill 2 where he's able to do a single lane arts damage that is quite a huge amount, although you do have to bear with the stun that he gains after his skill ends. Istina has a super fun skill 1 and skill 2. I highly recommend Istina if you still do not have Angelina or Suzerain in your account. Her skill 1 is super powerful at slowing one particular enemy at a time. Then, if you want to slow multiple enemies, you can try out her skill 2. Glaucus is someone who I find more fun the more I learn about her kit. For the fact that she can bind enemies for a long duration, it's very helpful in certain scenarios. Glaucus' main powerhouse, however, is if she's attacking an aerial enemy. So if an enemy happens to be flying, she's able to increase the bind time, and she also has a higher damage onto them, making her super fun to use. Firewatch is great on her skill 2. The bombs that she calls down to strike on the ground can be very fun to watch. Meteora has a super strong skill 1 that has a huge AoE range. In the past, Meteora used to be an old favourite for many of the AK players. But of course with newer AoE snipers like Fear Meta or W, some people might forget the significance of Meteorite. But I'm gonna say, I still love her a lot, and I think she's very fun to still use till this day. And Zima works very well for those of you who love your Vanguards. If you enjoy the fact that Bagpipe is buffing your standard bearers, Zima will do the same for you, buffing all your Vanguards in one go, giving them a great amount of attack and defense. If I never got to name an operator that you wanted to pick that's within the selector ticket, don't feel bad at the decision. There is no wrong decisions for you to make. As long as you're happy with it, that is what's most important. So if you want to pick someone else, like a Seisa, a Tsukinogi, or even anybody that I've not named, please go with your heart, and I'm sure that's how you can have fun in Arknights. If not, that's all the advice that I have to give about the 5-star selector ticket, and I hope that it's helped you out. I'll see you guys in the future of my videos. Alright, take care, bye bye.